Hello, I'm Kathleen Storr, Director of Community and Content Strategy at Informa Connect. My position within the company places me here today in front of all of you. Well, in front of you in the fairly accurate photo in this page. I work on a variety of trade shows and content, all within the area of catering and events. Here is a list. Today, I'm representing CaterSource. It has been quite the 9 months, hasn't it? This past March, I was in Las Vegas putting on my annual conference and trade show. It started on March 9th. It looked like this: razzle-dazzle and full to the brim conference rooms. This in particular was one of our food trends sessions. It had parties, show floor and conference session tastings, big demos, stage shows, essentially everything we are used to when we go to conferences. And Elvis, of course. The show ended on Thursday, March 12th, and by that following Monday, the country was shut down. Our favorite restaurants, weddings, graduation ceremonies, corporate events, just done. As we began to crawl our way out of quarter 2 and into quarter 3, and now quarter 4, we know that this is a pandemic of great strength and fortitude. If we ever wanted to get back on track and begin celebrating life events as humans are wont to do, we'd have to mask up, glove up, and keep our guests socially distanced, is how I like to put it. So will we be this way forever? Let's talk quickly about what the catering industry itself is saying about that. I recently surveyed a wide swath of the industry for my annual State of the Industry feature. This was one of the questions I asked. A lot of people have said to me, I went through 9/11, the recession, etc., but this is unlike anything I've ever experienced. One gentleman I know got on a plane to leave CaterSource in Las Vegas on March 12th, flying to New York City. By the time he landed, he had lost $5 million in upcoming events. So what was the answer? 90% definitively answered yes. But what about that other 10% then? We can look at it another way. The 4 answer choices for that question were yes, probably, possibly, and no. Of the over 1,000 respondents to the survey, only 1.33% answered with a definitive no. No, as in the pandemic has not been the worst thing to happen to my business. 1.33%. So yeah, things have been bad. Some catering companies have closed their doors forever. Old established companies, family owned. Some have taken advantage of the PPP loans. Staffs have been cut. Events have been moved to other quarters. Many just outright canceled. Weddings you can move. A company picnic in the middle of summer? Not really. Across my survey, 64% of catered events were entirely canceled in 2020. 26% of them were rescheduled into 2021. You know what that leaves? 10%. Caterers are operating on 10% of the business that they had in 2019. But we are seeing some glimmers of hope. I also asked the group this question, and with it, I asked them to identify the quarter they felt this would happen in. Here are the quarters, and here's your answer. Here are a few more glimmers. I also asked what business owners are doing to keep the lights on. In many cases, they turn to new avenues that they hadn't ventured on before, be it drop-off and delivery or virtual events. I'm not going to read these out loud, so I'll give you a few seconds. There was a bit of an overlap in their answers, wasn't there? So much virtual, so many pop-ups, so much charity, either to their own furloughed staffs or to the community at large. So let's get to the nitty-gritty about how chefs are not pivoting. They are I want you to meet one chef, Brad Tolles, who had his team put together a video clip showing what he is doing to keep the Palm Springs Convention Center going. Listen to his first few lines. They really cut to the heart of what chefs need to do in today's very weird world.
To really be successful, it's not only being innovative with food or the style or the look of the event. You have to now attach it to 0 outbreaks 14 days later after your event's over. Now you have something to really brag about, and that's what we have to live up to. In the food service, have had to elevate a level of sanitation and safety practices. These are over and above what CDC requires. The system behind me is our system for a plated meal. Each chef is part of a control point where he's touching a piece of the product that's going to go on the plate, fall within the CDC guidelines of social distancing, even in this plate up. Gloves, mask, shield, a full bodysuit, something for 10 people could be the same exact plated meal for 2,000. At the very end of the line, there'll be a stainless lid cover, what we call doming, and then from there it goes into a hot box. It's a controlled temperature. From the kitchen to the customer with no exposure until the customer removes the lid and decides to eat the entree. Behind us is an example of a high-end, elegant gala dinner that would be 3-course. Salad, entree, dessert. You can see behind us socially distanced based on the chairs and where everyone's sitting. We call this station a shielded dome station, an example of an exhibition salad station. They would request their ingredients, the things they like. The chef would then take those items, prepare them, toss them, season them, flavor them, place them in a to-go container, or more elevated, it might be placed on china with a dome. Everything that's been done to create this to be a safe environment is finally done at the point when they dome it and they hand it to the guest. And at that point, there's been no exposure by anyone at all until the dome is removed. Okay, here's another example, again, of the shielded station. This is a dessert station, but done in ways that fit into these modern times, or this post-COVID world. Here presented is 2 forms of desserts. Here's an example of a plated dessert, and before it's served to the guest, it's domed. It can be pre-done in advance for large volume events. Either format allows us to do a myriad of different desserts, either for exhibitions, stations, and or buffet.
There's the quote that I found so inspiring. Now you have something to brag about, and that's what we live up to. So guest safety is paramount. But with all of the sanitation standards that we put into place, there is another issue that is a tough nut to crack. Yeah, guest management. Looking at the survey I sent out again, I asked this question. The answer, pretty much half of all events show the guests running roughshod over the people who are wearing the masks, the gloves, who are spritzing the hand sanitizer upon entry and taking the temperature checks. Guests are hugging and handshaking and kissing and forgetting to wear masks. And although some couples do really get it, most do not. And truly, it is not possible for the guest to remain masked at all times, given the nature of food and beverage consumption. Some catering companies have begun requiring clients to sign a safety agreement in advance of their event. If guests don't comply, such as refusing to wear masks except when eating or drinking, staff will issue multiple warnings before shutting down the event. When I ask this question, catering and events companies are really only assuming that enforcement is part of their services at this percentage. Guidelines vary from state to state, and they are less clear than those imposed upon restaurants. Many catering companies have chosen not to deal with the issue of in-person events and are turning to drop-off and delivery for one or many. We'll see this a lot, especially with virtual fundraisers. So let's talk about the transformation of the catering business. And I just added this one in for fun because honestly, there should never ever be chocolate fountains anyway. This is very much a shout out to the incredible wherewithal of the caterers and event planners who are working through seemingly insurmountable challenges. Let's take a look at what the catering industry is doing to execute their food. Immediately, caterers started taking charge. Many began building their own boxes and serveware before manufacturers could start rolling out alternatives. Caterers are used to building specialty props in-house, and the middle photo is an example of one of the very first items I saw come out from Thomas Caterers of Distinction out of Indianapolis. And you can't see it in the photo, but the top plexi protects the food, and then the food is situated on the bottom of that plexi. The cloche and dome, glass or plastic. Where before it was just for show or for a very formal presentation, now it is seen regularly. Plastic domes such as seen in Chef Toll's video are for less formal events, of course, although he made it look very beautiful. Here are a few more, courtesy of the New York Times. Food has become the big spend in weddings, especially. Without the extraneous event details such as a dance floor, DJ, and of course hundreds of guests versus a couple dozen, couples can go all out on elegant, whimsical, and decadent solutions where everything is individually served and packaged. As cited in the New York Times, a couple in Connecticut very recently supplied each of their 20 guests with a catered picnic basket and monogrammed blanket. And everyone was out in a field, socially distanced. The basket contained biscuits, roast chicken, mac and cheese, grilled summer vegetables, German potato salad, and a mini bottle of champagne. Rainbow cake push pops were a substitute for sliced wedding cake. Speaking of cake, here's my friend Ron Ben-Israel in the blue mask, who, because his towering traditional wedding cakes were not as much in demand for many months, he turned to creating all kinds of cookies that are now being shipped nationwide. Moving on, a few Instagram grabs. Beautifully packaged delivery options, and in the middle, a caterer noted on Instagram that they had started an individually packaged frozen meal line. Either drop off or delivered. Also seeing bridal tastings being dropped off by the caterer with an image showing how the meal will be plated, and then either a Zoom call with the chef or salesperson. Charcuterie and cheese plates are extremely popular, and please note the level of detail, almost bespoke, on some of these plates you've seen. This is a huge new business for caterers. Wrapping this section up, wine tastings with accompanying meals or the requisite charcuterie are finding a very enthusiastic audience. Send it out, Zoom call, tasting with the sommelier. Okay, to your left, this has been a go-to way to announce a food item at parties that are a bit more over the top, shall we say. Now you may expect to see the name of a food written across the front of a mask, etc., or a job responsibility. Or perhaps your server will wear green gloves for vegetarian meals being served and red gloves for meat at the center of the plate. Drive-in events, joyful deliveries, food trucks. There are a lot of terrific ideas out there. There are some tremendous products being developed that will help put your best foot forward. But what we really need to keep the catering industry afloat is for events to return. I like to think of it this way. 100 years ago, the pandemic of 1918-1919 gave way to the opulence of the Roaring Twenties. This crowded photo, it was shot in 1929 on a cruise ship, no less. And we all know what the cruise shipping industry is facing right now, right? So I choose optimism. We will rebound. We will rise again and we will thrive. And until then, here's a love letter from the towns of Las Vegas and Reno for you all.
Everybody get up! Are you ready for this?
Well, I hope that got you excited for the return of events in 2021. For now, I thank you for your time, and I also want to thank those listed on this page for their photos, videos, and information. If you have questions for me about my data or my conference CaterSource and the special event in July of 2021, my email is on the second slide of this deck. Thanks again. See ya.